you know, again, I started with the neck, then I did a jaw. The jaw was as simple as, you know, going in and sketching out a shape.
Actually, this is based on, it's a creature. This is for a commercial for a boogie board.
Maury boogie board.
Yeah, Maury boogie board. And this is the monster from the boogie board.
Yeah.
So
that takes possession of the kid and makes him a really good surfer.
Because you know that sort of thing happens.
So, but again, you know, I roughed out the shape. So here's the jaw shape, and then I knew there was a cheekbone shape, so I roughed out that shape. And then I'd go in, and this has obviously got to be curved around. You can bend that around at 90 degrees. And stretch it out. So here's the way the jaw is starting to form out. And then I go in, and all I have to do again is, you know, I mirror this over. Now again, one of the reasons I like to work like this, you know, with sort of big over-exaggerated shapes is you can really visualize how it's going to go together a little bit better. It's easier than just doing, you know, general boxes. For some real complex things. Like for instance, for the shapes in here, you'll notice there's a lot of really interesting detail coming into here. So then, you know, then the next thing I did was the eye section in there, for instance, and just started adding detail as I went. You know, I did the basic shape around here. You know, you can see the jaw section here that I added in, and I connected that across the bottom, and you know, basically extruded it across. There's a bunch of other ways of adding geometry though, which is really useful. And again, when I do the rough shape thing like this is for the really complex organic stuff. But let's say I wanted to add more geometry in here. Let's say I wanted to, you know, I wouldn't necessarily make another disc and then try and hand stitch it across there. Let me cut these two parts off and just show on the neck here.
What are you going to do, beveling or
I'm going to turn this into a meta-NURB object.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, let's get to the meta-NURB.
Now let's first of all look at the...
Ken, before you go on, you just did a meta-NURB, right?
Yes.
You have to talk about
which is, okay.
Yeah.
Jump right in.
Okay, the tab key in 5.0 is going to put you into the meta-NURB mode, basically. And just by hitting that, you take a look at the preview up in the upper right-hand corner. As soon as it hits the tab key, you notice it instantly smooths out and becomes a meta-NURB object. And this is basically the equivalent of doing a metaform. I mean, it's a rough approximation of doing a metaform. And you'll notice that you've got the lines around the object. Those are sort of guides. Those are not, they're visual representation just to give you an idea, but they don't really have any effect. They're not going to show up visually. But you see the way it changes the object. And now Kenny can work on that crude form, basically, and see the results instantly. As he moves things around, you can instantly see how it affects the object, okay? And again, basically it's just automatically metaforming on the fly while still allowing you to work with a crude shape.
Another view thing though is, if you notice, somebody asked about this before, the patch polygon thing. And well, was that with the spline patches? That's actually, there's the two different parts of this. There's the patch polygon and the patch surface. And in meta-NURBs, the surface is actually, you can make that invisible or you can make the patch polygon invisible. I've got a keyboard set up that automatically turns off the patch polygon, so I can just look at the object. And all it gives me is the control points for that, so I can still drag those around. But all I'm looking at is the final curves. That's a really useful thing to do in a lot of instances. And again, it's just another view setup, and if you want to go back to the different views, it's easy to turn off and on, you know. But again, adding more geometry is the real important part from there.
And why would you need to add more geometry?
Well, let's say I wanted to build the shoulders out a little bit more.
Right.
Or something. Or again, I start off with a very, very simple form, and I only add geometry when I need it.
Right.
So I'm going to create a box. Simple, quick. Throw that in the background. I'm going to do something called a drill. I'm going to do something called a slice, which is going to take this in a particular direction that I'm selecting, which in this case is the Z direction, or no, it would be the Y direction. And it'll take the background box and basically slice it right across there. So now I've created additional geometry, and I can go in and,
What the slice function does is it's basically adding By additional geometry, it just means more polygons. And again, the more polygons you have here, notice it's not a lot more, but it's enough to give them a little bit more control over things. You're out of metanerbs, right?
Yeah.
There you go, back in.
When you actually, do the metanerbs or the metaform, it actually does smooth out the sections pretty, substantially.
Now, there's a couple of other techniques that come up, and we touched on them real briefly before, but let's just talk about beveling as a way of adding more geometry here, and also smooth shift. You want to do that first, right? Or do you want to go straight to the dinosaur?
Well, the basic problem, or the basic, dilemma you get into a lot of times is how to tighten up curves and how to, make it so you have detail in certain areas.
Without over-detailing the entire object.
Yeah, exactly. One of the ways you do that a lot, and the way a lot of people use it is they'll just, bevel out a section.
And again, what the bevel's going to do is,
it's going to add that extra piece of geometry, so now it's tight across the top. And you can see how that's affected.
You just went to metanerbs mode there, right, Kenny?
Yes, I did.
Mention that.
Sorry. Okay.
Because otherwise, it just magically, the object changes, yeah. So before, tab out of it. So here's the basic shape, and then when you run a metanerb on it, it looks like this. And what you'll notice is the bevel along the top there that he ran changes the shape of the thing considerably.
One of the crucial differences between metaform and metanerbs is with metaform, it does a similar thing. It smooths it out, obviously. But with metaform, as Lee was saying before, it subdivides across here. So it quadruples the polygons, basically. And then if you do it one more time, it actually subdivides all the polygons that are there again. After 2, or if you end up doing 3 metaforms, it adds a tremendous amount of geometry. One of the things about metanerbs that's really cool, it sets up patches, similar to the, spline modeling, where it actually has a certain amount of patches going across there. And you can adjust that. That's in the options, data options. So, I could go down, to 1 subdivision, which is just the normal box. I could go to 2. So you have a tremendous amount more control over, how many subdivisions you wanted. I could have 5, which,
Do you usually keep that set someplace, or do you change it around?
I keep it at 5. It depends on the object. But that's one of the crucial differences, and that's one of the reasons why it's really great. It's because what you do to end up with a final object is when you have the object finally modeled and ready to go, you want to do something very similar to what you did with the spline before. You want to freeze it, but you can freeze it with any of those levels of patch division. So you can go in and adjust the patch division and look at it and see what kind of detail you want out of it.
The metanerb object itself is not something you can load into Lightwave.
Yeah.
You need to do a freeze on it the way we did on our spline thing, which is why we started with that. But because you can change the patch division, in the data options there, you can actually have different polygon versions of it really quickly and easily.
Yeah, it gives you a real huge amount of control over the amount of geometry you're going to make on the object, the amount of polygons.
You can use a lower detail version off in the distance, and of course that's just the way you'd use it. And it's very handy with the one metanerb object. Basically, you can make a bunch of different polygon-sized regular objects very, very, very quickly. And again, a whole bunch of advantages there. Let's actually go to the Allosaurus, Ken. And this brings up a number of different things, the least of which, in a sense, is modeling. There's also some stuff, obviously, about the texturing, and this is where some really neat stuff comes in. But here's the basic object, and this is the pre-metaform version.
Yeah.
Ken?
Yes, it is.
And again, if you look at the neck there and stuff like that, that's basically that disc shape extruded and bent up that we were talking about.
In
Obviously,
fact, the entire body was basically just me with a magnet tool going through, with a big long disc and just adding things on. And then I drew out the shape for the leg again, and I went in and I attached that, throughout there. I, had the basic shape of the arm, attached that in there. You can see in the eye, for instance, the eye was a separate piece that again was, I made the shape of the eye and ended up just adding, just stitching that in, basically. You can see how it sort of just formed in there.
Yep.
So again, it's just really simple stuff. I had the basic shape of the head here. I did the same thing with the nostril. That was just kind of another opening that was added in.
Was that beveled in, or?
I think the nose was beveled in. The eye was definitely a different shape because I wanted a specific, I wanted that eye shape. For
Yeah. A lot of times, like I say, people think of beveling as something you do just to text. But the nostril there, a lot of times, I've seen Ken put indents into objects with beveling in. And just again, it's simple, but it's something a lot of people, they just, doesn't occur to them to use the bevel tool that way.
Yeah, this was done with Metaform actually. We ended up using Metamation, which saved our lives, because I was originally setting it up with the old bones. And unlike a lot of, even unlike human models, like some of the other character stuff I'd done before, like the EVA suit, when I originally set up the bones for that from Sequest, I got away with a lot because the suit itself had a solid body and then separate legs and arms. But with the Allosaurus here, it was sort of really different. One of the things that's different than on an Allosaurus and humans is that the legs come directly out of the side of the body, whereas the legs on a human sort of stick down. And you can see how this is sort of parallel with the body all the way down. And if I rotated this section of the leg up, you know, in a forward direction like this, it would take all the rest of this part of the body with it, and it would end up shearing it across the top and across there. And this happens with, you know, with a lot. This is a problem that's inherent in a lot of different 3D programs, not just Lightwave. I mean, I talked to a guy in Optimage, and they didn't have necessarily an answer to that either. But luckily the answer came out just in time, and that was Metamation.
You're getting way ahead.
Oh, I am? Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I'm getting ahead. But basically, the reason I used, you know, Metaform Plus on this was because it was just, it's a little bit quicker to work with. You can use triangle polygons and all that kind of stuff. But more so, the primary reason is because Metamation uses Metaform.